Hey, thanks for being a part of the conversation. Let's do some pod crashing. Episode number 307 is with Jerry Clark from the podcast Storytime with legendary Jerry.
Hey, I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm fantastic. And dude, I have waited how many years, almost 50 years for this moment to happen, because it is about time that we start talking about hip hop and stop pushing it into the corners of the world. This was a major part of our lives, Jerry.
Thank you, man. Do I need to bring you home to be my co-host?
Dude, I mean, I'm up here in Charlotte, and I remember back in the 1990s when the record stores would hang a sign on the outside of the window saying, "We don't sell rap music." And I'm going, what is going on here?
Oh, shit. See, I never saw those signs being here in Atlanta. And I'm shocked that Charlotte had those signs.
Oh, my God, yes.
You say 90, that was during that was as I was starting my career and in my young 20s. So, man, that's very unfortunate.
Well, it was during that age when we love our brother Luther Campbell. He and Two Live Crew.
Yeah. Okay, now it makes sense. It makes when Tipper Gore, when she was on her crusade.
Yep.
Okay. Now that definitely makes sense, because Two Live Crew, they had to go to court for us. And I tell people all the time, I had Luke on my show a while back, and he's coming back on, and we talked about like the importance of what he did, because he broke down barriers. I mean, for these rappers to be able to cuss the way, I mean, to say what they want to say, and he broke it down. He broke down those barriers.
Well, I've always seen it as they were speaking the street, the reality, because you know what? In reality, we all say those words. We just can't say it to everybody, including our mothers.
Right. Right. So it's it's what Luke did was it did wonders, man. It did wonders for the whole rap hip hop culture.
Wow. Listeners need to understand that we're talking about the podcast Storytime with you, Jerry, legendary Jerry. And I love the fact that you are taking the word of where we've been in the past and you're putting it in the present, because I love me some Nicki Minaj, but there was a story before that.
Yes, it was. And what you're going to get from my show is the narrative from the South. Mm-hmm. Okay. Atlanta and the South. In the words of Andre 3000 at the Source Awards, we still have something to say. And what I'm doing with my guests is we're talking a lot of the backstories, and we're giving our narrative. We're giving our narrative of the South. And you just mentioned 50 years of hip hop. Half of those years, if not more, the South has really, really, really controlled the narrative. A lot of New York cats might not want to hear that, but it's true. It's facts. If you look at the numbers, the South has really, between what was happening in Houston and New Orleans and Memphis, Miami, and then you throw in Atlanta. Mm-hmm. I mean, 25 years, the South has really had a stranglehold on this game.
Mm. You know, you bring up in the first episode Hot 107 and how that opened up an entirely new door for so many things.
Yep. Well, Hot 107.9 is one of the hip hop stations in Atlanta, and their summer jam per se is called Birthday Bash.
Yep.
And when I tell you, it's like a whole movie in itself every year. It's usually in June or July, and so many artists from the South, that was their way of really getting to show how big they were, not just in Atlanta, but period across the South and across the nation. And I have to give Hot 107.9 their props for, having the wherewithal to put certain artists on there. Like I remember, and I had Pastor Troy on my show, and we talked about when him and Master P were beefing. And he was supposed to perform at Birthday Bash, and Master P was on that same show and tried to block it. And said no, and of course Master P was super, super hot at the time. And he told the staff at Hot 107.9 that Pastor Troy come perform. So, they pulled Pastor Troy. But then Atlanta's own Goody Mob said, no, we're not doing that. And they brought him out. And when I tell you, to this day, I have never seen a stadium or venue rock like this venue. I thought it was an earthquake.
Yeah.
I'm sure it registered. I'm positive it registered on the Richter scale somewhere because the whole stadium, the chairs, everything was really moving. It felt like it was an earthquake. So those are the type of stories that we're going to talk about. And, coming out of Atlanta, coming out the South.
But you know what listeners need to understand, though, Jerry, is the fact that you have real conversations with your guests. These are not prefabricated, edited, and thrown into a 30-minute show. You have real talk on this, and I feel like that I'm sitting in your circle, and that means a lot to my heart.
Yeah, and not to disrespect anybody, any other shows, anything, but I've been firmly entrenched in this music business for 30 years.
Yeah.
So I'm not just one of those, those people or talk show hosts or podcast hosts that's just talking about things that they heard or they maybe seen. Or I was there, literally and figuratively. I was there. So I'm talking about things that I saw with my eyes.
Yeah.
And that my guests saw with their eyes. And we're talking about what happened, what really happened. Not what some blog site or not what social media is saying happened or what people are guessing on Twitter and spreading. I was there. My guests were there. And we're talking about those stories.
Yeah.
And you're only going to get that with somebody like myself, Legendary Jerry. So that's why I created Storytime with Legendary Jerry.
One of the things that a lot of listeners connect hip-hop to or even rap music to is the fact that, it was East against West. The South did not play that game. We were in our own little zone, weren't we? We were like, okay, I understand what's going out there. Get some headlines, get some attention, but we're going to formulate our own sound.
Yeah, and that's what we did. And it goes back to the whole culture in the South. Mm-hmm. Is I laugh and tell people all the time, one thing in the South, if somebody doesn't like you, they're going to tell you to your face. And it's just, but it's a lot of love. And I tell people a lot as well that the reason Atlanta was able to take off is because of that type of camaraderie we had. I mean, you just name them. You would be in the studio and you would have artist A in the A room and another artist in B room, and they'd both be multi-platinum artists. They'd be like, hey, man, so-and-so producers in here, let's, roll up, come in here. It's just that we always had that type of camaraderie here in Atlanta. And I'll attribute it to the culture in the South. That's just the South. And we always, like I say, of course, in this hip-hop and rap game, you're going to have beefs, but it was nothing like what was going on in the 90s with the West Coast and East Coast. We just, we stayed in our own lane. And in the words of Pimp C, man, this country rap tunes, man, and we've been controlling the narrative for over half of these 50 years of this hip hop game.
Pastor Troy introduced a whole new thing because he kind of touched on that in the way that everybody was doing like group things. But yet when Pastor Troy came in, it was like, okay, now we're going to make a difference by being individuals and we're going to step out there and make this happen. Because at that point in time, we had NWA, which was a group. Everything was a group. But we didn't have that solo star. Yeah.
And even coming out of Atlanta, I watched, the Crisscross and the Outkast and the Good Mob. So it was, to start seeing the solo artists, the T.I.s, the Pastor Troys, the Jeezys, the Gucci Mans, like it was just great to watch. Even to watch, I work with these artists, the 3-6 Mafias, the 8-Ball MJGs, and, then I watched what Texas did in Houston. I was just so proud to watch these guys come up and, come up out the South when everybody was always, it was always a little they just country, they in the South. So to watch these artists from the South really take hold and blow up, it was always great watching that. But we definitely, and I'll say it again, a lot of people might not agree with it, but the numbers don't lie. Is the South, we've controlled this narrative for at least half of the 50 years of this hip hop.
Well, I'll tell you one thing that's happening up here in Charlotte is the fact that we have a radio station that is finally playing the 90s hip hop. And it's like, my God, when you listen to that station, it's like it takes you back to where you were when you first heard that song. And it's like, why has radio waited so long to honor such a great sound?
Yeah, and I don't get it because if you look at any other genre, they all have classic rock. They have and I'm with you. I wonder why it took so long. But I'm glad that now radio is starting to embrace the 80s and 90s hip hop and even early 2000s because those were the golden years.
Yeah, yeah.
I tell people I know, I love a lot of the new music that's out now. I love a lot of the new artists. But those golden years, those late 80s, the 90s, early 2000s, oh, man, those are some incredible artists and incredible records that I still ride to daily in my car. Daily.
Well, see, I'm a mobile DJ, so when I pop on some Jump from Criss Cross or I jump into that early day stuff, the people that are on my floor have no idea that those songs were even created.
Yeah, wait, hold on. You said they don't even know that they were created.
It's just a song. It's part of my generation today. Oh, is it new? What is this, man? And you sit there and you look at these because I do a lot of high school dances and stuff like that. And when you pop onto one of those old cuts, because you're taking a chance, man. And when you do that, you're going, oh my God, they reacted to it. I knew they would.
Yeah, yeah. Because one thing about good music, there's not an expiration date on it. and I tell them, all three of my kids are grown. And, I'll peep my son listening to some Outkast or UGK. And I just laugh to myself because, when he was young and a kid, of course, the music was different. It might have been Soulja Boy. It might have been whoever.
Yes, yep.
And it's always, and I catch myself in the car, I'll be listening to some Earth, Wind and Fire or Wonder because that's what my parents played in the house. So it's all good music, James Brown. Good music has no expiration date. And Criss Cross Jump was a worldwide phenomenon.
Yep.
So I know with you being a mobile DJ, you're able to play some records from your glory days. Mm-hmm. and then play hits from the day. Yeah. So, and I'll say that good music has no expiration date.
Well, you kind of touch on that on the first episode of the podcast in the way that, in fact, I never even thought about this, where the street music versus the stuff that was being played on the radio, two completely different worlds.
Yep, totally. And it's it took a while for I can speak for here in Atlanta because I remember when the one urban station we had here, they didn't even play rap until 6 o'clock.
Wow.
It was like between 6 and 10, and 6 maybe in midnight. And then it took for the other urban stations to come into the market and loosen that up. And they loosened it up where like, okay, now this rap hip hop genre is trending to be the number one, not just in the United States, but in the world. And that's what happened. And so radio stations had to loosen up a little bit and be like, okay, this is what what our listeners want, and this is what's driving the station. So they had to switch it up, and and I'm glad they did. But I see there's been a big push, and I'm not mad at it with R&B coming back because I love some great R&B music. So, and that just challenges a lot of these rappers to really, step your game up. Step your game up.
Have you ever sat down with the performers that, before the hip hop, before the rap, the Luther Vandrosses, the Teddy Pendergrasses, Anita Bakers, when they saw this starting to happen right there in front of them, how did they embrace it? Because it was going to take over. I mean, it's taken over country music even today.
Yeah. That's a good. I wish I was old enough, or not. I shouldn't say old enough. I wish I was able to sit down with those great artists you named, especially before Luther passed, to ask them what was their viewpoint. Like how did they see it? Did they see this as my parents told me years ago? Oh, this rap music could be like breakdance. It'll be gone in a few years. Is that how they saw it, or did they see this as being a staple in the community and something that was going to have some longevity? That's a very good question. That makes me want to interview somebody like an Anita Baker, and asked him, like, when you saw this rap game blowing up, and you got to think about how it impacted them as well, because with rap being such a heavily sampled, they do a lot of sampling. A lot of these artists made a lot of money from sampling. Yes. James Brown, Anita Baker, Isley Brothers. You got to think about it. Their records were sampled a lot. So that also kept their music relevant. It kept them where people were like, oh, what was the original version of that record? Oh, that was an Isley Brothers.
And even if you were to sit down with Gloria Gaynor, because she has proven to the world that you may have labeled me a disco queen, but boy, I've got something else inside of me. And even everybody is proving to the world that I'm not just this rapper or this hip hop artist. There's something in me that the world needs to hear.
Yeah, Gloria Gaynor is the perfect example how if you look at how she's been able to reinvent herself and adjust over the years. And that's what, like I said, I'm hoping and I'm watching, for example, Andre 3000 of Outkast, yes. He just put out an album. He just put out an album playing the flute. Of course, I work with him, I know him, but as a fan, I want to see him come back and rap. I want to see another Outkast out. But still, he was able to reinvent himself and put out an album playing a flute. Mm-hmm. So, I give anybody credit and much respect if you're able to just continue to reinvent yourself on a daily basis, because I'm definitely trying to reinvent myself every day.
Yeah. Speaking of reinventing, how do you like the way that movie theaters are accepting the fact that, for instance, like with Andre 3000, I was at the one with Kanye, where they're bringing the concert to the people inside the movie theater. Does that take away from the regions of music, or do you think that opens up the door for more people to be in love with music?
Good question. I went back and forth on that. I think it really opens the door. I think is able to spread it more to the masses, to somebody who may not have the ability to experience it. Because one thing about a movie theater is everywhere, no matter where you are, rural, urban areas, wherever. So I think it definitely helps spread it.
Wow. Sitting down with CeeLo Green. Now that right there, he's on my bucket list, and I'm so jealous of you. I am so jealous of you. I've been knowing, I've been around CeeLo for years.
Wow. And when he was young in the Goody Mob, and to see his growth, and I'm on the stress growth, is such an amazing thing. He's just such a good dude and one of the most talented individuals. From a songwriter to a rap lyricist to a singer, man, this guy, he's one of the most talented individuals I've ever encountered. And I have him coming back on Storytime with Legendary Jerry very soon. And we're going to talk about a whole lot. So that's why your listeners have to tune in. If you want to watch me on YouTube and watch and listen, Legendary Jerry Clark channel, or you can go on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts and check me out as I interview individuals like CeeLo Green.
Yeah. Are you part of the production staff? And the reason why, because I love the length of the podcast, because Charlotte, just like any other city, is a 20-minute town, and you give me everything I need in about 20 to 40 minutes.
Yeah, and I try to take into account myself, because when my adult ADD kicks in, and look, and I'm able to admit it now. Maybe I'm able to admit it when my adult ADD kicks in. I zone out. So I wanted to give people a good, 30 minutes, then come back 2 days later. So every week I release an episode on Wednesday, and then I come right back Friday. Yeah. So that way you can take a break. You can be waiting on it. Like, okay, I can't wait to hear what they talked about. So kind of like suspenseful in a way. But I'm glad you said that, because we battled with whether we wanted to just have an hour and a half of a straight interview. And then we came to the conclusion, me and my production team, of chopping it up and breaking it up, because some of these other podcasts that I love, they'll talk for 2-3 hours, and I zone out.
That's me.
I zone out. So that's why I wanted to make it easier for the listener to be like, okay, let me get a quick 30, 35 minutes and then I'll come back in a couple of days.
Well, I'm so proud of you for keeping this in the history books because it's too easy to forget. And when you sit down and listen to each one of these episodes, it's like, oh my God, I totally forgot, but I can't forget anymore.
Yes, and just wait when I tell you, I have some upcoming guests. A couple that are close to being confirmed that are going to blow you all away.
Can't wait.
And of course, the conversations are going to be very intense and just knowledgeable. So I'm excited about the podcast. I'm excited about the masses listening to it and watching me. I'm just excited overall about Storytime with the Legendary Jerry Show.
You've got to come back to this show anytime in the future, Jerry. The door is always going to be open for you.
Anytime you want me on, I'll even hop on 85 North and drive up the Charlotte and come be in person if you need me to do that. Either one, I'm fine. Thank you again. I appreciate you. Everybody in Charlotte, Mecklenburg County, North Carolina, I love y'all. Make sure you tune in to Storytime with Legendary Jerry.
You be brilliant today, okay, sir?
All right, you too, sir.